Today, we're diving into an intriguing ethical dilemma faced by a hospice nurse named Bo.
That sounds really interesting. What's the story?
So, Bo is a nurse at a hospice, and he's caring for a patient named Mette, who's 66 and suffering from lung cancer
Right.
and COPD. She has severe breathlessness and anxiety because of her condition.
Oh, that's tough. How is Bo handling it?
Well, Mette was admitted for a palliative stay of about 3 weeks, with the idea that she'd go home if she got better. After a week, she did improve physically. But, emotionally, she was struggling with the idea of leaving the hospice.
I can understand that. The hospice must feel like a safe haven.
Exactly. Bo noticed that she lacked the courage and strength to go home, so he suggested things like short home visits or overnight stays to ease the transition. But every time, as the date approached, her anxiety would spike and she'd cancel the plans.
That must have been frustrating for both of them.
Definitely. Bo then suggested that Mette consider a nursing home where she'd have staff nearby all the time. She agreed
Right.
to discuss it with her family, but here's the kicker. She hadn't told them anything about it.
Oh no, that probably didn't go over well.
Exactly. When the care coordinator came, her family was blindsided. They were really upset with Bo, feeling like the hospice was pushing Mette out.
Wow.
They thought she was going to stay there until the end.
That puts Bo in a really tough spot.
It does. And he felt like he was failing Mette. But at the same time, the hospice team had to consider whether Mette still needed specialized hospice care.
Yeah.
They had other patients to think about too.
It's a classic ethical dilemma between individual care and resource allocation.
Exactly. And then, to make things more complicated, Mette's daughter offered to take care leave to look after her at home, but only after she returned from a vacation she had planned. She asked if they could delay the discharge for another 2 weeks.
So Bo had to decide whether to extend Mette's stay again?
Yes, and the stay had already been extended multiple times.
Right.
He was torn between wanting to support Mette and the practicalities of the hospice's operations.
That's really challenging. Do you think they should have extended her stay?
Well, it's complicated. On one hand, Mette was anxious and felt safe at the hospice, but on the other hand, she no longer had specialized needs that only the hospice could provide. They also
True.
had to consider other patients who needed those resources.
But don't you think that sometimes policies can be too rigid? Maybe they could have made an exception for Mette.
I see your point, but if we make exceptions for one patient, we might have to do it for many others.
Yeah.
It can set a difficult precedent.
True, but shouldn't patient well-being be our primary concern?
Absolutely. But we also have to consider the well-being of all patients, not just one.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
I guess sometimes difficult decisions have to be made.
Exactly. Ultimately, they decided to proceed with the discharge. They arranged for her to go to a municipal respite care facility while her family was on holiday.
Makes sense. I feel for Mette, though. Change is hard, especially when you're dealing with illness and anxiety.
Absolutely. It's like when you're afraid to step out of your comfort zone, even if it's necessary.
Right.
The hospice was her safe space, and leaving it was terrifying for her.
You know, this reminds me of the broader issue of resource management in healthcare. There's always more need than there are resources.
Precisely. And it's a tough balancing act. As much as we want to provide individualized care indefinitely, there are limitations. It's not easy to accept, but it's reality.
So, how did Mette handle the discharge in the end?
Well, she had been at the hospice for 9 weeks, which was 6 weeks longer than planned.
Wow.
Hopefully, the respite care offered some comfort, and her family supported her upon their return.
I hope so. It's a tough journey for everyone involved.
Definitely. Cases like this highlight how crucial ethical considerations are in healthcare.
Yeah.
It's not just about medical treatment, but also about empathy, communication, and tough decision-making.
And sometimes, no matter what you decide, it feels like there's no perfect solution.
Exactly. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Totally.
But I think open dialogue and compassion can help navigate these situations.
Agreed. And I think Bo did his best under the circumstances.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of strength to handle such dilemmas.
Indeed.
It's important we acknowledge the emotional toll it takes on healthcare professionals.
Well, this has been a really insightful discussion.
Yeah, thanks for diving into this with me.
Anytime.
It's topics like these that remind us of the complexities in healthcare.
Definitely. Let's continue to have these important conversations.